Okay, today I want to talk about RustDesk, which is a remote desktop solution. I'm going to cover what remote desktops are, the different ways you can use them, how RustDesk can be configured in 2 or 3 different ways, and then give you a demo of a setup on Windows, Linux, and on macOS. So if you want to find out more, please let me explain. Now, before we get cracking, this video did actually turn out a bit longer than I anticipated, so there are some chapter markers if you need to jump around a bit. Okay, let's dive in. What do we mean by a remote desktop solution? What is a remote desktop? Well, let's say you've got 2 PCs, they're on the same local area network. That may mean either through Wi-Fi or using Ethernet cables and some kind of hub or switch. And basically you're sitting at one PC and you want to be able to see what's on the screen of the other PC. You would use some remote desktop software to make a connection to the other machine and display on your machine what's on the desktop of the other machine. So a remote desktop. And that's very useful for situations where you've got a box running something, maybe it's running Linux or something, and you don't actually have a monitor connected to it. It's a headless setup, so you want to use it then. Or you've got multiple PCs in your house, maybe other members of the family, whatever, and you want to gain access to that PC to help with a problem or whatever, to use something on that particular machine. So that's remote desktop over a local area network. There's also another alternative, which is remote desktop over the internet. So in this case, the blue machine and the grey machine here are in different physical locations, and you want to connect over the internet to that second machine. This is often useful if you're helping someone with a problem. I've often had cases, members of families and friends, Gary, can you help me with this? And I say, well, let's just connect using remote desktop and I can see what's on your machine and help you configure that printer or whatever it is that we were looking at. So in this case, the connection is made over the internet. That's what I mean here by this cloudy shape. And then you still get the same result, and that is the other person's desktop up on your machine. Now, there are lots of remote desktop solutions available. For example, Windows Remote Desktop. The client comes with just about every version of Windows. The server is generally available in the Pro version, so Windows 11 Pro, Windows 10 Pro. If you're not using that, you can use VNC and its variants, and there are many of them, and that allows you to, very popular with Linux machines. So up until recently, something like Ubuntu would come with a VNC server built into it. It's now actually switched over to using Windows Remote Desktop. There's the Chrome Remote Desktop. There's Raspberry Pi Connect if you want to connect to a Raspberry Pi machine. TeamViewer, a popular one for people who want to connect over the internet to a friend's PC, a member of the family, so you want to help them with support. AnyDesk, No Machine, and there are lots of others. I haven't missed out any intentionally here. This is just a list of kind of some of the popular ones, and there are others. So if your favorite one is not on there, do forgive me, but there are other ones. So why do we need RustDesk? Well, the first is it's open source. Now, some of those other ones I mentioned before, like VNC, there are some open source variants of it. Windows Remote Protocol, RD Desktop Protocol, is not open source. So it's open source. That's definitely a big plus. It's written in Rust, hence the name RustDesk. So that should mean that memory errors and therefore security errors should be a lot less because it's written in Rust. Rust kind of tries to remove those, something that doesn't happen normally traditionally with C. It's cross-platform, so Windows Remote Desktop Protocol, RDP, of course, is Windows. You can kind of now get it on Linux, but this is truly cross-platform, Windows, macOS, Linux, Android, iOS. So with one client and one piece of software, if you set it up on all your machines, you're kind of getting it working everywhere, which is really helpful, not just switch from one thing to another. You just your go-to application is RustDesk, and it will just go ahead and sort it all for you. It's free, and that's a great thing. And you can self-host a RustDesk server, and we will talk more detail about this in a minute if you're not sure why you'd want to do that. But basically it allows you to gain access over the internet. So you can actually have a completely remote machine and you gain access over the internet to it, just like I was saying as an example of doing that. So RustDesk will allow you to do it. So you can do both the local area network connections and the connections over the internet, and because you're self-hosting the server, that gives you, of course, great privacy. You're not sending up your connection info to one of those commercial services and then they're connecting to that secondary machine. It's all handled by your own stuff and therefore completely private. Now in a minute I will be demoing RustDesk to you, but I wanted to show you there are 3 different ways of setting up RustDesk, and it depends on what you're trying to achieve. Now the demos I'm going to be giving you is based on this diagram here, which is the local area network variation, where you want to connect from one machine to another that's on your local area network. So here is a more detailed picture of what I showed you earlier. So this is my main machine. Let's say I've got other machines on my network and I want to create a connection from this one to this one, the grey one, and basically RustDesk just allows me to do that. Of course, the actual physical connection goes over your local area network, whether that's Wi-Fi or Ethernet, and the screen appears here on your PC. And I'm going to demo that Windows, Linux, and so on in a moment. There is that second way that I was talking about, and that is where I'm on a remote machine. I want to connect over a network to one or more machines that are connected to a local area network, but I am not connected to that local area network. I'm connected over the internet. Now the big problem here, which I glossed over earlier on, that's why I'm doing this more detailed picture now, is that normally you have a firewall there. Whether that's a sophisticated firewall that from a business or an enterprise, or just the firewall that you get with your internet connection from your internet service provider, a little modem box of some kind, depending on whether it's fiber optic or whatever it is that you're using, and it's kind of got a built-in firewall into it. The idea is that people on the internet, because you're connected to the internet, can't get access to your PC and start going through all your files and things. So there's a firewall there. Now, how do you get a connection from this machine through this firewall to one of these other machines and to see what's on their desktop? And that's like the huge thing. The whole point of a firewall is to stop people getting in, and now I want them to get in and I want them to see what's on my desktop. So, how does it do that? Well, the way it does that is you have to run a RustDesk server, and that's also on the internet side. It's on the left hand side here of the firewall. So I've been testing this out, and I basically got myself a $5 a month server from Linode, and basically just have this small server running. I installed the RustDesk server on it, and what happens then is you configure these PCs that you want to allow access. You tell them about this RustDesk server. Now the point, of course, of a firewall is it allows you to make connections out. So I want to browse the internet, I want to look at my email, I want to download, I want to watch YouTube videos, whatever. It lets me take connections out, and then in a response to a connection out, things can come back. So I want to go to a YouTube video, well, the video can come back to me. So here I make a connection out, all these machines make a connection out to the RustDesk server. And then this PC here, it talks to the RustDesk server and kind of piggybacks on the back of the fact that these have made outward connections, so I can now reply with an inward connection. There are some much more technical things that are going on. That is a simplification, but that's basically what happens. And so now I can get connection to this PC and see its display because the RustDesk server has provided me with the information that I need. Now this would be on a fixed address somewhere. It'll have a fixed IP address. You can assign it a domain name. You configure everybody to use this. These, of course, this connection is dynamic. You don't know what your ISP is giving you, what addresses it's handing out, how often they change. Certainly not fixed, but because you've got this RustDesk server, it brings stability and also allows you to transverse the firewall. Now, do tell me in the comments if you'd like a video on this second way of using it, because that's something that I could do, and I've been testing that out. So do let me know, and if enough people want that, I'll definitely do that. Now, the third way is the same situation. I want to connect from a remote machine through to something on a local area network over the internet, and that pesky firewall is in the way again. So what I actually have to do is make a hole in my firewall. Now that sounds quite dramatic, and it is in some sense, but basically what you do is you open up a hole to a RustDesk server that's running on your LAN. So it's not running out here on the internet like in the other version I just showed you. It's running here on your LAN, and you specifically open a hole that does only one thing. I can connect from here to the RustDesk server. It's all I can do. I can't connect to these machines. I can't connect to the printer or whatever. All I can do is connect to the RustDesk server. And the RustDesk server then again acts as a kind of a broker, as a way of actually allowing me then to connect to the individual machines. These ones again still need to be configured to use this RustDesk server. Though it's running locally, it's not running out on the internet. But I do need to open up a hole in my firewall, which means port forwarding and some firewall rules to allow that to happen. Now, I won't do a video on that because there's so much depends on what this firewall is, what type of firewall is, and there are just so many out there that it would just be impossible for me to cover that for your particular setup. But that is a variation that's possible. Okay, so here I am on a Windows 10 PC. This is not my main PC, it's a PC I have on my network, and I really would like to be able to connect to this using RustDesk as a remote desktop solution. So what we're going to do is go down here to the command line. This is PowerShell, and I'm going to use winget. Now, hopefully you've seen my video on winget. Really easy. We just say winget install rustdesk.rustdesk. Really simple, and that will go ahead and install that on this PC. Okay, as you can see, there's now a RustDesk icon here on my desktop, and of course you can put it on the toolbar and everything else you would do normally on Windows. So I double click here, and then the important thing is that you need to go to the settings. You just saw I click that little 3 dots there, and you go down to security, and you're going to need to grant permission. So a little window is going to come up and say yes, I grant that. And then the important thing is you scroll down to here until you say enable direct IP access. That means you can just go from one RustDesk client to a RustDesk server that's running on another machine without going through the intermediary. You just direct connection, which is great for a home LAN. So I go from my main PC to this one. So I'm going to say enable, and the port number is the standard one, and that's it. Now the other thing to do is to scroll up here a little bit and say set permanent password. That allows me to set a password so that even though it's on my own LAN, I get to control who connects to this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set myself a password. Notice there are some criteria here. It has to have a digit, uppercase, lowercase, longer than 8. So I've got a kind of a password that I use for things on my LAN like this. So it's easy for me to remember. And there we go, we've set that password. Now one final thing, I'm going to need to know the name of it. So look here, it's called Fuji 5 because it's running an Intel i5, and so I can use that name now, Fuji 5, when I want to connect to it. Okay, so that's all I need to do here now on this PC. Now the other thing to note is that down here on the icons, look, RustDesk is still running there. So the RustDesk service is running, which means I'm able to connect to this at any time that I like. So it is running on this PC, and there's a little icon there to show that. And if you reboot, it's still actually there. So it's one of those programs that starts up automatically when you boot up your PC. So here I'm on my main desktop now, and I've got the RustDesk client running. I can type in Fuji 5, and you can see it's found it there with the ID. So we can click on that and then go to connect. It's asking for a password, which you remember we set. So we go away and type in that password. And here it is. Here it is, connected. Let's go full screen now. Okay, connected, and I can log into this PC. Now there are some controls. For example, I can click up on here and get the scale adaptive, which means it kind of gives me that more of that full screen look and feel. Now, another thing you can do with the resolution is I can go up here and I can change the resolution. So currently it's on 1024 by 7. I can fit it to my local resolution, which is full HD, and I can make sure I've got that adaptive scaling turned on. And now here it is. And I can go full screen as well. So now here it is. So now here I am running full screen, full HD resolution, connecting to that other PC. If we go back down here again to the About PC setting to make sure it's that same PC. There you go, Fuji 5, which is that i5, and it had that 20 gigs of memory and so on. So there you go. Absolutely fantastic. This little bar here, okay, can be moved. And it allows you to get access to those different things, including, of course, minimizing it. And then you can bring it back at any point like that. Okay, so that's Windows to Windows. Let's try something else. Okay, so here I am on a Ubuntu Linux system. This is an x86 Ubuntu Linux system, and I've already got the RustDesk website open up here in Chrome. We go down to downloads, and then as you can see, there are different downloads here for different operating systems. Now we're on Ubuntu 64-bit Intel, so we'll download this .deb file as a Debian file that we can now install. So to install it, we go to the command line and then we cd into that download directory, and then we want to run the dpkg Debian package manager -i, and then the name of that file we just downloaded, .deb for Debian. So we can go ahead and install that. We need to authenticate, and it's going to go ahead and install that for us straight away. Now it has come away and told us that we need to install another package. So what we can do is a sudo apt install, and then we'll just copy that package over like that. Go ahead and install that first. That was a dependency that we needed. Okay, and now we can go ahead and install that package now, the one we downloaded, RustDesk package. Okay, that's all great. So now that is now running on our desktop, and in fact if you see up here, it's come in there. So we can go to open, and we can do like we exactly like we did before. Go to the settings here, which was its security, unlock those because we want to change them, typing in our password, and then scroll down here. First of all, enable direct LAN, and then secondly we can set up a permanent password just as we did on Windows a moment ago. Okay, and like on Windows, it's up here running, so there it is like that. And now we can try and connect. Now the name of that machine is UM300. That's its host name. As you can see, it's found its ID already for us. We can now type in our password that we set. Now, if you're using a new version of Ubuntu, you're going to get this error about login screens using Wayland is not supported. Now, it supports Wayland, but not just that login screen. Now, there's a way to fix that. Now, the fix for this is documented on the RustDesk website. Down here it says login using Wayland is not supported yet, and it shows you that you need to change this file, which is what we're going to do now. Sudo, and then we need an editor. You could use Vi. I'm going to try Nano, and then we need to go into etc/gdm3/custom.conf. So you change that to Wayland enabled equal to false. This is only for the login, doesn't change the Wayland desktop. And now we can try again. But before we do that, we do need to do a quick reboot. So back in RustDesk, done the connection as before, type in the password. And there we go. Now it's coming in with our normal login prompt, where I can just log into my Ubuntu machine as I would do normally. And there we go, running full screen. Using RustDesk, now I have access to my Ubuntu desktop remotely. Okay, so I've already gone ahead and downloaded RustDesk for the Mac. You just need to copy it into the applications folder just as you would for any other Mac application. Now, when you run it for the first time, there are some permissions that you need to set, in fact 2 or 3. So every time it asks you to set the permission, just go ahead and allow it to do that for everything to work well. And once you've set up all the permissions, you need to go into the options like we did exactly on the other operating systems and set the local LAN stuff, and also set that password, the global permanent password. And that's it, you're up and running. Okay, so I'm over back on my main machine, my main Windows PC, and we're now going to connect to Gary's MacBook Air. Enter the password, and there we are. And as before, always we can make this, full screen. We've got the adaptive scaling on, and it's working just absolutely great. So there we go. Now I've got access to my Mac. And there you have it, RustDesk. Love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you tried it out? You thinking of having a look at it? Do tell me what you think. Well, my name's Gary Sims. This is Gary Explains. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you like these kinds of videos, why not stick around by subscribing to the channel? Okay, that's it. I'll see you in the next one.